During World War II, a Hungarian named Abraham Wald was tasked by the Statistical Research Group at Columbia University, sought to evaluate and give thought to reducing bomber losses due to enemy anti-aircraft as well as to fighter aircraft damage properly. Different areas that these bombers or fighter aircraft took in regarding damage determined whether the regions of the plane received the most damage. After analyzing these damaged areas, Wald and other researchers determined which area of the aircraft needed the most protection. Wald also saw that some areas could take damage and the aircraft could continue its mission. At the same time, however, they would notice that other areas needed the most protection despite the areas that received the most damage. Because of these findings, a significant bias or fallacy was created due to Wald's conclusions. Survivorship bias is a bias or fallacy that focuses on those who survive and succeed while not focusing on those who did not succeed or survive. This is very applicable to what we are going to talk about regarding a soldier who died during the Civil War and was marked unknown. 750,000 deaths is the new estimate according to David Hacker. His latest study on census data in the 1860s concluded that deaths from the Civil War have reached 750,000 deaths to possibly 850,000 deaths, and in the future to 1 million dead. As a result of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, weapons were changed despite the keeping of traditional military tactics. Modern weapons mixed with 19th century military tactics and values, as a result, created massive slaughter in the Civil War. It would also violate how Americans of the 1800s viewed death. According to historian Gilpin Faust in her work, This Republic of Suffering, Death in the American Civil War, quote, "The concept of the good death was central to mid-19th century America as it had long been at the core of Christian practice. Dying was an art, and the traditions of the Ars Moriendi had provided rules of conduct for the moribund and their attendants. These beliefs were held by Americans at the time, requested that when someone is dying or has died, one of those requests was for the individual to die surrounded by family or another kinsman. During the Civil War, soldiers from North and South were far away from their homes. Those values were violated as a result of these modern conceptions being introduced in the 19th century war. Instead of dying with loved ones by their side, they died in a cornfield, a wheat field, a peach orchard, a knoll, or in a hospital with no one to help comfort them in their last moments, except the dead littered all around or by the doctors and nurses who helped them recover from their mortal wounds. Because of the high numbers of deaths, we can be overwhelmed by the numbers and not recognize that behind those numbers there is a father, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, or a nephew. The Civil War changed how death was perceived. We are going to look at one of those 750,000 plus deaths through a soldier that we will identify as unknown until later. But for now, let's look at the soldier's life before he died during the war. This soldier was born on April 26, 1830, in Oswego, New York. During his childhood, he lost his father at age 6. Then he lost his sister due to drowning. Later on in 1851, he would lose his mother without being able to visit her during her last moments. During this soldier's childhood, Oswego became an important commercial hub in Tioga County, New York, connecting with major cities like Ithaca with a major railroad as well as its proximity to Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. This child attended school in one of the city's neighborhoods where he learned to read, write, as well as learning mathematics. Despite his education, this young man and his brother would decide to work instead of going to the rigorous and demanding Oswego Academy, the best school in the city. They would become apprentices in a harness shop, a place where other necessary items needed to support farmers were needed, as well as build and create straps, saddles, collars, and other hardware. He became an apprentice in 1845 and then left the business around 1850. After working at the harness shop, he and his brother decided to strike out on their own. His brother, after becoming an apprentice, decided to open up his harness shop. But his brother decided he wanted to work differently and reflected on his life. Instead, he left Oswego bound for the eastern seaboard toward New Bedford, Massachusetts to find a new calling.